This week, James Coyne announces he will be stepping down as president of NATA. American Eagle will furlough 50 pilots as it idles planes. And an AOPA-ASF study shows no significant safety benefit from glass panels in GA airplanes. I am Ashley Hale. Welcome to Airborne on Aero TV. Well, there's change in the wind at one of the nation's leading aviation advocacy organizations. In a statement released Tuesday, longtime NATA President James Coyne announced he will be stepping down from the post effective December 31st. Coyne said, "The NATA Board of Directors and I have decided that 2012 will be my last year as president of NATA." Coyne took over the post in 1994 after serving in the U.S. Congress. He said he will continue to lead the association until January 1st, 2013, and says he will support the board in the transition process and work to hand over an association prepared for the challenges that our industry will face in 2013 and beyond to the new president of NATA. NATA has not yet announced plans for its search, nor was there any detailed explanation for the change in leadership. Coyne has distinguished himself in the role and will be a hard act to follow. A&M will keep an eye on the search for a replacement for this pivotal organization. Another aero domino has bit the dust, as yet another airline has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection as the airline industry continues to be squeezed. The latest to file is charter carrier Ryan International Airlines, which is citing decreases in government spending for the move. The carrier provides airlift services to the U.S. military on a contract basis. In documents filed with the U.S. Bankruptcy Court in Rockford, Illinois, the Wichita-based airline said a 2010 cut in reimbursements to air carriers adversely affected its bottom line, and that its cost remains fixed while the government made deeper cuts in military charter flying. The airline has also spent millions to buy 2 Boeing 777 aircraft from Egypt Air that it now cannot fully operate. Ryan Airlines has a fleet of 18 airplanes. Along with its military and commercial charters, it provides services to leisure travelers and sports teams. Things are still shaking out over at American Eagle, where a decision by the regional carrier to idle 9 of their airplanes will result in the furlough of 50 pilots. Company president and CEO Dan Garton issued a memo outlining the changes last Thursday, according to the Dallas Business Journal. In it, he said the airline's 50 most junior pilots would be furloughed, as the carrier now has more pilots than planes for them to fly. Barton called the move, quote, regrettable but necessary in the competitive business we are in. The furloughs will begin April the 5th. The airline said it plans to park the 9 ATR regional airliners beginning in May. Garton said displacement bids for pilots and flight attendants will be posted soon in an effort to balance staffing levels with the new schedule. American Eagle, which is owned by AMR Corporation, is still working on its Chapter 11 bankruptcy reorganization plan. Now, while we don't have a lot of details yet, A&N has learned that an Israeli-made military jet fighter went down Tuesday morning at Fallon Naval Air Station in northern Nevada, and it fatally injured the pilot, a civilian contractor. The airplane, an F-21 Kfir fighter, was owned by defense contractor Airborne Technical Advantage Company based in Newport News, Virginia, and it went down just inside the west gate of the base, according to a report in the Associated Press. The company provides fighter aircraft for use by the military as surrogate enemies for training purposes. Since the airplane was owned by a private company, the investigation will be led by the FAA and the NTSB. A&N is stunned to learn that the pilot was none other than high-time Navy stick and warrior poet Carol Lex LaFawn. Well known for his excellent blog, www.neptunuslex.com, and of course for being a fine aviator. A&N offers its heartfelt condolences to his family and his friends. A&N continues to prepare for our annual Avionics extravaganza, with the latest generation of our live special event coverage plans for the upcoming 2012 AEA Convention and Trade Show, live cast from the nation's capital. In addition to the coverage being hosted on the AEA, ANN, and Aero TV sites, we can confirm that the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, as well as the Experimental Aircraft Association, will also be carrying this intriguing programming on their sites as well. We've extended invitations to both of these organizations for members of their editorial staff to participate in the shows themselves, and AOPA has already taken us up on the invite. As we approach the program dates, to be live cast on April 4th through the 6th and offered as archived programming thereafter, we'll offer additional details. We look forward to providing our best effort yet. The increase in glass panel cockpits in general aviation aircraft has not had a dramatic impact on safety, according to new research by the AOPA Foundation's Air Safety Institute. Tom Patton has that story.
With glass cockpits now very much the norm in new GA airplanes, it's pretty much the exception to find steam gauges in a new airplane rather than the rule. The AOPA Foundation Air Safety Institute conducted a study to see if those new high-tech panels were having an impact on safety, and the results are a little surprising. The study shows that the accident rate in lower-powered aircraft with or without glass panels is higher, but the accidents are less likely to be fatal. ASI manager of aviation safety analyst David Jack Kenny said what's on the panel is not nearly so important as what you're flying and how you're flying it. Overall, glass cockpit displays had very little effect on the accident patterns among similar aircraft, though data suggests they set themselves apart in the traffic pattern. Kenny said that the study showed a higher rate of accidents during takeoffs, landings, and go-arounds in glass panel airplanes. Kenny said airmanship matters more than equipment. He said some pilots may be spending more time looking at the instruments than outside the airplane. He said the difference is smallest among the lower power models, but the reason for that remains unclear. One possibility is that analog gauges can be more easily interpreted during rapid changes in airspeed and altitude. He also said glass panels may have advantages when it comes to terrain avoidance, avoiding restricted airspace, or VFR flight into instrument conditions. But he said the numbers are small enough to leave some doubt as to whether or not there is any real effect. For Airborne, I'm Tom Patton.
You're watching Airborne. More in a moment.
Redbird Skyport is a multifaceted aviation laboratory charged with developing innovative solutions to the issues facing the industry.
It started out as a vision for a laboratory where we could objectively measure the systems and the processes that we were developing. Being able to put some objective measures behind the anecdotal evidence that we have about the value of motion and the application of this technology is very, very important, because until we can objectively measure it and play that data back, we can't design training systems that make the best use of it.
For more information about Redbird flight simulations, as well as Redbird's new Skyport, visit www.redbirdflightsimulations.com or www.redbirdskyport.com.
Welcome back. If you have a story suggestion for Airborne, Aero TV, our website, or podcast, you can send us an email anytime to news-spy@aero-news.net. The Air Force is embarrassed. Air Force Chief of General Staff Norton Schwartz said last week that the service would move quickly to reopen the bidding for the LAS contract, which was abruptly canceled as of last Friday. Speaking to a group of reporters in Washington, D.C., he said that the cancellation of the $355 million contract for 20 A-29 Super Tucano aircraft due to problems with supporting documentation was a, quote, embarrassment to the procurement process, and that the Air Force would reopen the bidding as soon as was practical. Multiple media sources, including Defense Media Network, report that Schwartz said if the Air Force had botched the contract, it would be a, quote, profound disappointment. I can assure that if it wasn't an innocent mistake, there will be hell to pay. Meanwhile, the State Department was working to smooth things over with the government of Brazil, which, according to the French news service AFP, had sent a strongly worded statement in which it expressed surprise at the manner and timing of the cancellation of the contract. Deputy Secretary of State William Burns told Brazil that the decision is not a reflection on the A-29 Super Tucano, which he said is a very fine aircraft. He said that the problem was with the internal processes, but that the U.S. government remains interested in the airplane. Burns said that the cancellation was not linked to an ongoing bidding war between Boeing, Dassault, and Saab for 36 fighter jets for the Brazilian Air Force, worth up to $7 billion. He said they were, quote, separate issues, but that added that he was certain the FA-18 is the best aircraft for that mission. The F-35 conducted its first operational sortie at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida March 6th, but the flight was cut short when the pilot declared an in-flight emergency due to a possible fuel leak in the plane. Air Force officials said that the pilot did exactly the right thing in returning to the base. Pilots and maintainers met after the flight to discuss the potential fuel leak finding that caused the precautionary end of the sortie at 15 minutes versus the scheduled 90 minutes planned to complete the operational check flight. Still, the Air Force called the flight a success, saying the objective for getting the airplane in the air and commencing local area operations were met. F-35 test pilot Lieutenant Colonel Eric Smith said that the team did the most conservative thing in cutting the flight short. Pilots for cargo giant UPS took a preemptive action last week prior to a scheduled meeting Thursday between U.S. Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood and company executives. In that meeting, LaHood was expected to ask that UPS voluntarily opt in to the new FAA pilot fatigue rules. This meeting to seek elective compliance from cargo airlines is a commitment the Secretary made last year when he announced the new rule. LaHood supports the voluntary opt-in for cargo airlines, bringing their pilots in line with those flying for passenger carriers. The Independent Pilots Association, or IPA, which represents UPS pilots, delivered a letter to Secretary LaHood supporting that position. UPS management had previously sent a letter to the IPA stating, quote, UPS's position on the issue is well documented. We believe that cargo and passenger carriers require different regulatory approaches to duty and rest. There so far has been no word on any outcome from the meeting. Boeing has inspected 5 of the first 55 Dreamliners expected to come off the line after reports that a flaw was discovered in the composite airliner's fuselage. 787 program leader Larry Loftus told Reuters at a groundbreaking for the company's new finishing center in Everett that, quote, we will touch every airplane. Loftus previously led the company's successful 777 program. The flaw was described as a delamination on the rear fuselage of some airplanes, which Boeing says takes 10 to 14 days to repair. The plane maker says the problem may affect the deliveries of some airplanes in the first half of this year, but not its long-range delivery schedule. In just a moment, the spirit of the aviation community is exemplified by a natural disaster in southern Indiana. ANN's editor-in-chief, Jim Campbell, will have that story when we come back.
Aviation is the brand of choice for pilots who want innovative, easy-to-use avionics. And the new IFD 540 GPS Navcom sets a new standard for simplicity in communication and LPV navigation. As a slide-in replacement for existing 530 series navigators, and with a highly intuitive touchscreen control, the IFD 540 makes it much easier to access the information you want when you want it, reducing head-down time and making flying more enjoyable. Finally, you have a choice, and the choice is easy. Aviation.
Thanks for joining us. A small grass strip in southern Indiana was hit hard by the severe weather which cut through the Midwest last weekend. In his barnstorming commentary, Jim Campbell has a story that gets to the heart of the spirit of the aviation community from Lee Bottom Flying Field.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, folks, it's a little bit of good news and bad news. The bad news that the tornadoes that killed so many people over the past week also harmed an amazing little American airport icon, the Lee Bottom Airfield in Hanover, Indiana. While Rich and Ginger Davidson are okay and doing well, Their house is damaged, the hangars have been damaged, roofs have been torn off, equipment has been lost, stuff has been trashed. They're in a world of hurt. They've had people show up over the last few days to give them a hand, hammer down roofs, do whatever they can to help. The police have been by each night to keep looters away. They're doing everything they can to keep the airport together, the facilities together, and more important, try to provide a future for an amazing American airport. The Lee Bottom Airfield has been the home every year to an amazing little fly-in that occurs in September. Hundreds of airplanes show up to do nothing but show up and fly and have a good time and talk to each other. It's also the location on a number of Sundays in better weather for what they call Sinful Sundays, where people show up for ice cream and just have a good time and once again just chat about flying and flying people. This is an amazing couple. Rich and Ginger have put so much of their life into this. They do not make any money off of this. It's a beautiful strip in the middle of nowhere. It takes phenomenal energy to keep it alive, keep it mowed, keep it usable. And they do it because they love it. These are two of our best and our brightest. This is two of General Aviation's best folks, and they deserve your support and their care. Check out leebottom.com. Drop them a note, see what you can do. If you happen to be in the area, I'm sure you can help clear debris and help put homes back to order and hangars back up and things of that nature. But more important, show them your support any way you can because they're two of the best of us. They deserve your support. They've gotten ours. And to be perfectly honest, I can't wait till next September, the next big fly-in, to get together with them and everybody else and just have some good, clean, plain fun. For the Aero-News Network, Aero TV, and of course Airborne, I'm Jim Campbell.
A preliminary report issued by the NTSB in an accident involving a Cirrus SR-22 in a busy traffic pattern at Melbourne, Florida, indicates the pilot found himself with few options on his approach for runway 9 right. The result was an apparent classic stall resulting from a steep turn. All 3 people on board the SR-22 were fatally injured. In the report, the board says that the controller in the tower contacted the accident pilot to confirm that he had a visual contact with the Cirrus SR-20 on a 1-mile final for the same runway. The accident pilot replied that he was on a, quote, real short base for runway 9 right. The controller then instructed the accident pilot to cut in tight to runway 9 right. Several witnesses described the airplane as it entered a steep bank, followed by a vertical, uncontrolled descent. The airplane disappeared from view into a wooded terrain short of the runway. The airplane's parachute was found deployed and entangled in the wreckage. Witness statements and the location of the cap's components were consistent with a low-altitude deployment. A probable cause report will take as much as a year to be finalized. Okay, this does not sound like a good time. The crew of an Embraer EMB 120 on a cargo flight had a pretty wild ride on February the 16th. On approach to Iliamna, Alaska, the airplane suddenly pitched down 20 degrees twice. Fortunately, the pilot was able to recover and land the airplane safely, but what they found on a post-flight inspection may surprise you. The captain reported that the flight from Anchorage had been otherwise uneventful, until during the descent at about 250 knots airspeed, with his hands on the controls and the autopilot engaged, the airplane pitched to about 20 degrees nose down. The captain reported he then disconnected the autopilot and adjusted the pitch trim in an airplane nose down direction, while pulling back on the column to recover from the pitch excursion. The flight crew declared an emergency, and at about 200 knots airspeed, the airplane pitched down a second time while the captain was hand flying as he continued the descent into the Iliamna airport. The captain elected to make a high-speed, flaps-up landing and landed on runway 35. Post-flight inspection revealed that the left elevator was bent at the mid-span trim tab, had partially detached from the aircraft, and was missing 2 attachment bolts. If you don't think the FAA will take its proposed crew rest rules seriously, think again. The agency is seeking a civil penalty of $150,000 from Colgan Air, alleging that the regional carrier operated 17 flights without giving pilots or flight attendants the required minimum amount of rest. The FAA alleges that between June 14, 2008 and February 23, 2009, Colgan scheduled flight duty time for 2 captains, 2 first officers, and 6 flight attendants on a 7th day after they had been on duty for the previous 6 consecutive days. FAA regulations require the airline to relieve each crew member from duty for at least 24 consecutive hours during any 7 consecutive calendar days. One of the captains operated 4 flights without adequate rest. Each of the other flight crew members operated 1 flight without meeting this rest requirement. The FAA also alleges that Colgan failed to give 3 flight attendants a required scheduled rest period of at least 8 consecutive hours after scheduling them on flights after their previous duty period. 2 of the incidents took place on June 15, 2008, and the third took place on September 16, 2008. And that the airline scheduled a first officer for flight time on November 7, 2008, when the pilot's total flight time in commercial flying exceeded 8 hours between required rest periods. The airline has 90 days to respond to the allegations. As you know, each week we share with you a sample of an online video one of our viewers thought was, well, pretty entertaining. We call it AVW, the Aero Video of the Week. This week, even though the Shuttle program is officially over, the orbiter has fans worldwide, and one of them has made sure that the Shuttle still gets to fly. In this week's AVW, a Romanian fan flies a Shuttle again, made from Lego blocks. To find this video, go to YouTube and search for Lego Space Shuttle. The full video runs just under 4 minutes in length. And if you have a suggestion for a future Aero Video of the Week, you can email us a link to news-spy@aero-news.net. Finally this week, aviation pilots tend to get a lot of blame for things that often don't even involve them. But a DUI in a car? A district attorney in Fond du Lac County, Wisconsin is raising some eyebrows. Maybe rightfully so. With a plea deal that has allowed a drunk driver to plead no contest to operating an aircraft while intoxicated. The problem? The driver wasn't flying an aircraft and isn't even a pilot. But the creative solution allows the president of Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Wisconsin, Lawrence Schreiber of Muskego, to keep his driver's license after failing not 1, not 2, but 3 sobriety tests, according to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Schreiber will have to pay a fine and be assessed for alcohol abuse, but he keeps his driving privileges. And if he's ever charged with operating a vehicle while intoxicated again, the charge will count against him. I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound like a guy I want to be on the road with. Get comprehensive, real-time, 24/7 coverage of the latest aviation and aerospace stories anytime at aero-news.net. And join us again next week for another edition of Airborne here on Aero TV. I'm Ashley Hale, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.